Deploying the 2048 game on AWS EKS with Fargate, Step-by-Step Guide. This podcast is brought to you by Business Compass LLC. We are an Amazon Web Services advanced consulting partner. We build and migrate workloads to Amazon Cloud. Our website is businesscompassllc.com. Our phone number is 973-638-2228. Our email address is contact@businesscompassllc.us. Deploying applications on cloud platforms has become a norm for modern software development, providing scalability, reliability, and ease of management. This podcast will walk us through the steps to deploy the popular 2048 game on Amazon Web Services, AWS, Elastic Kubernetes Service, EKS, using Fargate. This approach ensures a serverless, scalable, and highly available deployment. Configuring AWS EKS with Fargate. Step 1. Setting up your AWS environment before deploying. Ensure you have an AWS account with the necessary permissions to create EKS clusters and Fargate profiles. Install the AWS CLI and configure it with your credentials. Step 2. Creating an EKS cluster. Use the AWS Management Console or CLI to create an EKS cluster. Ensure your cluster is designed in a region that supports Fargate. AWSX Create Cluster Name, 2048 Game Cluster Region. Your region role ARN less than EKS service role ARN greater than resources. VPC config subnet IDS equals subnet IDS security group. IDS equals security group IDS. Step 3. Configuring Fargate profile. Create a Fargate profile for your EKS cluster. This profile allows EKS to schedule pods on Fargate. AWS X Create Fargate Profile Cluster. Name 2048. Game Cluster Fargate Profile Name 2048. Game Profile Pod Execution Role, ARN Fargate Pod Role ARN, greater than subnet IDS selectors, namespace equals default. Integrating OpenID Connect, OIDC, provider. Step 4. Associating OID key provider with your cluster. OID key enables secure authentication and authorization. To manage access securely, associate an OID key provider with your EKS cluster. Extol utils associate IAM OID key provider region, your region cluster 2048 game cluster approve. Step 5. Configuring service accounts with IAM roles. Create IAM roles for your Kubernetes service accounts to enable fine-grained permissions. Extol create IAM service account name 2048 service. Account namespace default, cluster 2048 game, cluster attach policy, ARN, AWS, IAM : account ID policy/policy name approve. Managing traffic with ingress and load balancing. Step 6. Setting up Ingress Controller. Install an Ingress Controller to manage external access to your application. Manginx is a popular choice. Kubectl apply fhttps://raw.githabusercontent.com/lif. Kubernetes/ingress-deploy/static/provider/aws/deploy.yaml. Step 7. Configuring Ingress Resources. Define Ingress Resources to route traffic to your 2048 game application. AP version. Networking.k8s.io/v1. Kind. Ingress. Metadata. Name. 2048 Ingress. Namespace. Default. Spec. Rules. Host. Your domain. HTTP. Paths. Path. Path type. Prefix. Backend. Service. Name. 2048 Service. Port. Number. 80. Launching the 2048 game application. Step 8. Deploying the application. Create Kubernetes deployment and service manifests for the 2048 game application. AP version, apps/v1. Kind, deployment. Metadata. Name, 2048 deployment. Namespace, default. Spec. Replicas, 2. Selector, match labels. App, 2048. Template, metadata. Labels, app, 2048. Spec. Containers. Name, 2048. Image, alex1/docker 2048. Ports. Container port, 80. AP version, v1. Kind, service. Metadata. Name, 2048 service. Namespace, default. Spec. Ports. Port, 80. Target port, 80. Selector, app, 2048. Type, load balancer. Establishing ingress settings. Step 9. Applying ingress settings. Apply the ingress settings to expose your application to the internet. Kubectl apply f2048 ingress.yaml. Key benefits of the deployment. Scalability. Automatically scale your application based on traffic. Cost efficiency. Pay for computing resources only when your pods are running. Simplified management. Use Kubernetes to manage deployments, scaling, and operations. Enhanced security. Secure your application with OID key and fine-grained IAM roles. Challenges faced and insights gained. Configuration complexity. Setting up EKS with Fargate requires multiple steps and careful configuration. Resource limits. Fargate has certain limits on resources that may affect the performance of highly demanding applications. Ingress and load balancing. Proper configuration of ingress resources and load balancing can be challenging but is crucial for managing traffic effectively. Deploying the 2048 game on AWS EKS with Fargate is a rewarding experience that showcases the power of modern cloud infrastructure. Following this podcast, you can leverage AWS services to deploy and manage applications efficiently. Happy deploying! Thank you for listening to our podcast. Please share this podcast, visit our website, and follow our social media links.